Wow, what a masterpiece. Yes, this is my Joker review, and it's gonna get a lot crazier once we dive in to this movie. See what I did there? See what I did? First of all, I just want to say this movie is incredible. There's no reason why you shouldn't see the movie unless you're not really a fan of more auteur type films. We'll talk about that in a second, but I just want to say that the first half of this review is non-spoiler. The second half will be spoiler moments, and we'll talk about the actual things that happen in the movie. But I'll warn you when that pops up. So Joker is an excellent film with commentary about modern day society and what it actually means to be the other side of what we're complaining about, basically, in ways, right? We're complaining about the certain news headlines that are coming out about violence and about people who, aren't mentally stable, in certain ways, right? And people like that. We're complaining about that as a society, but we're not seeing how the other side feels. And Joker answers that question, which is amazing. I loved every moment of that. But what Joker, I think, really does well is not only comment on modern day society and that side of it, but it also does a really great way of giving us this comic book character in this comic book world, right, a fictional world, and making it so realistic to the point where it tops Nolan. And I think that is a big deal, right? It's so realistic, but at the same time, you feel very comic booky. I feel like Nolan made it realistic to a point where it was stale in certain parts of the Dark Knight franchise, the Dark Knight trilogy. Here, it feels rich. It feels delicious, right? Like dark chocolate cake. It's a weird analogy or a weird reference, right? But it's true. It really is really rich and nuanced with flavor, and I feel like you definitely see that throughout the film. And there are moments, spoilery, where, we'll talk about that later, that I felt like were key moments in that, and I feel like that's a big deal. But we'll talk about that. Again, we'll talk about that. But let's talk about Joker as a film and how it's crafted. Joker is excellently written. Scott Silver, who wrote this film, I don't know if Todd Phillips was contributing to the writing as well to this, but I know that Scott Silver was, the main guy here. He did an excellent screenplay. There were rumors way before this film came out that the screenplay was garbage for this film. And I was like, I don't know. I feel like it could be. But you know what? It wasn't. It wasn't at all. It wasn't at all. And I feel like this movie, the reason why that the screenplay is so well is that the movie, again, talks about modern day society, but it's layered. There are different layers here, and they're all acting simultaneously around one character. And I feel like the centerpiece of this movie being Joker himself, it's a really good outline, right? You're taking Joker, who is essentially, a deranged psychopathic character from, that people know him as, right, in the comics, right? And he's jokey, he has his own evil way of doing things, twisted way of doing things. You take that as the centerpiece, but realistically lay on these layers of modern society again. And I feel like the idea of critics and the media hating DC so much. I know I've said this in past videos and people have disagreed with me, but it's so clear here. Todd Phillips legit proves it. I mean, this movie proves it, that people hate DC so much in the media that they are wasting time putting out headlines about gun violence and putting out headlines, about violence in general in real life, right? Like, again, referencing, people have done this, referencing the Dark Knight attack, right, on the Colorado theater, right? Which is a good point to bring up when you're seeing this movie, because there was a guard outside my screening. But they're bringing up so much about gun violence that they're not talking about the real issues, and that's mental awareness, mental health awareness, and, well, I don't want to spoil anything because there are some issues that are spoilery, but basically the idea that people aren't paying attention to mental health awareness, the idea that, and that kind of stems out to other stuff that I can't talk about until the spoiler half, but that's the big one. And so, and there are consequences there because of that, and the movie highlights that beautifully in a Gotham type way. So again, it's all centered around this one character in the screenplay and the writing, but it has other layers that are acting again simultaneously with that character and with that focus. It's amazing, it's brilliant, and if you don't think so, you're crazy, you're nuts, right? But there's also a layer of sympathy, right? That again, and this is in the trailers as well. But the Joker is supposed to make you feel sympathetic for him, right? And I feel like that's because, the trailer makes it look like, oh, a guy who's down on his luck, he might not be all mentally there. We should feel bad for him. But that's not really what the movie's about. The movie is about, again, that part of society that's ignoring the actual issue, or that's controlling everything and kind of twisting it around to kind of fit their image, right? In ways, not completely, not completely evilly. I don't know if that's a word, but not harshly, as it sounds. But I don't know I don't know how to explain it. It's so hard. It's so great. It's so layered. It's so nuanced. But basically, it makes you feel sympathy for the Joker because none of the stuff in the movie, and how can I say this without spoiling it, actually happens to him without society and the people around him playing a part in it. That's the best way I can say it without spoiling it. There are some hands in pockets, they're checking boxes, and that's contributing to the creation of Joker, right? So that's a problem, and I feel like it's being addressed here, is that we as people can contribute to somebody getting as low as the Joker does. So that's important. So that's what I feel like the movie has going for it completely, is that the screenplay and the writing, the ideas, the nuance here, is so parallel to what's happening now in real life. It's almost terrifying to think that this could actually happen in real life, right? It's terrifying. It's scary. And I feel like that's what Todd Phillips was trying to convey, with Scott Silver, of course, trying to convey. And he's not even getting credit for it. Nobody's talking about this. Nobody's talking about it. I mean, it's ridiculous how nobody is talking about it. But also, I feel like that this is a movie that can just be watched without having to think about as well. I mean, I don't think you have to read into all of the messages that are here to be able to enjoy this movie, which is great. I think that Joker is just really good at standing on its own as a film, right? Now, if you recall back a while ago, like a long time ago, I made a video about how this movie was unnecessary. It didn't need to be made, and that Warner Brothers was giving itself a headache. I think that's still true. I'm still standing by that. I think that having this movie is a mistake to some degree, because now people are going to be wanting more of this, more of these types of DC films, and this splits the DCEU into two different directions. I mean, technically three, if you count this, Birds of Prey, and then everything else that's going on with Matt Reeves, and then Birds of Prey and Wonder Woman and all that stuff, Aquaman 2, and then again, Matt Reeves' stuff, Todd Phillips' Joker. This is splitting it up too far. So I like this. I think that DC should still go in this direction, but it sucks because they can't do it often because of all the other stuff that's going on. It's ridiculous. I don't know why WB keeps giving themselves these headaches, right? This is what they should have been doing originally. And to be honest with you, the dark tones, nobody's complaining about the dark tones here. Everyone's praising it, whereas Zack Snyder gets no love for doing it. He started it first, and so it makes me mad. It makes me mad. It makes me boil. Anyway, so yeah, Joker's really great structure-wise. Now, in terms of the actual performance, Joaquin Phoenix is amazing. He is, without a doubt, an Arthur performer here. Like, wow. Everything just blew me out of the water. His choreography, which is in the trailer, so it's not a spoiler, but there's this choreography scene that's in the trailer, and watching what happens before that scene, I'm not going to spoil it, but all I have to say is, it was beautiful. It was intensely beautiful, and I have to say that that's how he is throughout the film. And there's different shades to this Joker. There's different shades to Arthur, and I think Joaquin, again, it's perfect. In the last 30 minutes of the film, Joaquin not only blows me away as a comic book fan, but blows me away as a cinema fan, as one of the best performances in a movie, as this type of character, probably maybe even ever. I don't know about like recent, but maybe even ever. But I know that recently in not just comic book films, but in all film, he does a really great job, and it blows it out of the water. And I think that this is a performance that will last forever. And again, it's crazy because you look at this and Heath Ledger, and I think Joaquin Phoenix, I think this was the secret sauce to carry on the legacy of Heath, but also start a new one as well. And it raises the bar with the Joker. Poor Jared Leto, he never had a chance. But Joaquin Phoenix did a really good job. Todd Phillips, great director. Scott Silver, great writer. We've already discussed that. Everybody else in this movie kind of plays small supporting roles to Joaquin Phoenix's Joker, which, I mean, I guess makes sense. It's a movie called Joker, right? But there's not a lot of screen time for any of the other actors in this film, except De Niro. Robert De Niro, that performance was excellent, and we can't talk about too much here, but we will in the spoiler half of this review. So overall, that is my non-spoiler half of Joker. I do think it's a great film to go see if you're into these types of trippy, auteur type character study films. But if you're a comic book fan, specifically DC, you need to watch Joker. It's like not even a question about it. You just need to watch it because it's just so good. It's that good. It is a slow burn, though. That's my only downside to the movie in my non-spoiler half, is that it's a slow burn film. So there are moments where it'll be a little slow for some people who aren't into these types of movies. If they're into more popcorn, right? Popcorn type films, right? Like blockbusters and stuff. They might not love how long it takes, right, to get into all that stuff. So that's the downside, but even then, it's just worth it. It's so worth it for the end. Again, the last 30 minutes, so worth it. So that's my non-spoiler half of Joker. All right, spoiler alert, you have been warned. We're going to talk all about the things that I want to talk about here for spoilers, so get ready. Okay, you're still here? Cool? All right, let's go. So Joker has some genuinely surprising surprises, and I actually really loved how they fused the comics and parts of like different comics into this movie, particularly The Dark Knight Returns. We'll talk about that a little bit later in the spoiler half, this half. But I just really loved how they did that. But I also love how genuine, again, the messages are in this movie. First of all, I just want to say the Joker, Arthur Fleck, the character in this movie, starts out as a very good person. And I think that's important because this is, again, commenting on how society is part of the problem of some of these people that we see in real life, like Arthur Fleck. And it's really eye-opening. I mean, for me, watching this as an audience member, I was like, wow, the subway, what, was it a subway or was it just a regular train? It was the subway. What am I talking about? Yes, it's the subway with the Wayne employee killings. That was great. I mean, I was really eye-opened to that because I think it's interesting how everybody's talking about the gun violence in this film. But nobody's talking about how those killings in the film, I guess because it's a spoiler and people don't want to spoil it online, or maybe they're just intentionally leaving it out. Interesting. I'd like to see what you think about this. But anyway, those killings started out as self-defense. And I think it was unfair for people to turn on the movie with gun violence. I mean, there is some parts that are actual gun violence, but nobody's talking about that part. Nobody's talking about how it starts as self-defense. The only time Joker... the first time that Joker kills somebody in this movie is, again, self-defense, because those guys were beating him up. I mean, it didn't end that way, because he ended up, aggressively shooting the last guy, which is really unfortunate. But it is the Joker. This is a rated R film, so it had to be taken there. And it's a part of the story. It makes sense. It's logical. But it starts out as self-defense. I also loved that he, talked to Thomas Wayne in the bathroom at the theater. He was like, nobody's been nice to me. Nobody's been nice at all. Alfred wasn't nice. Thomas Wayne wasn't nice. His boss wasn't nice. His mother, to a degree, wasn't nice by not telling him the truth. Maybe she thought he couldn't handle it. But still, you need to be nice and tell your son, right? I mean, he's like, 30-something years old in this movie? 40, maybe? So yeah, that was unfortunate. But he's right. Nobody is being nice to him. And that's an important thing to remember as well, watching this film, is that nobody was nice to Joker throughout the entire thing, to Arthur. And again, it's society causing the problem, which is so great. So great to see that. I wonder if Todd Phillips knows anybody with mental health issues in real life. And maybe has experienced that in his family or something like that. Or maybe Scott Silver, who wrote the movie, maybe he had an experience. Because I think that it's such, or maybe not. Maybe they just thought of this on their own. But the idea of really making Joker a mental health poster boy, right? Or poster man or poster person for mental health awareness and to how to deal with that. Whoever came up with that idea, they're excellent. They deserve a cookie. Maybe it was Todd Phillips because he pitched the film to Warner Brothers. I mean, obviously, right? So they deserve an award, right? So I really liked that aspect of the movie, especially, again, in certain parts. Like the Wayne Manor Alfred stuff. We'll talk about Batman in a second. But Wayne Manor Alfred conversation, that was great. And then the Thomas Wayne interaction, which, by the way, we'll talk about the whole Bruce Wayne brother storyline, stepbrother storyline in a second. But I really do like the idea that Thomas Wayne lied through his teeth, right? Because of that Penny Fleck letter that we see at the end. Lied through his teeth. I mean, maybe he's not the brother of Bruce Wayne, but it's something you could explore in a sequel. I don't know if they're going to make one. I'm making a video about doing a sequel for this film, by the way. 2 videos, actually, because there's 2 things I want to talk about. And we'll talk about that in this review as well later on. Again, there's some stuff we're just going to put off to the side for a second, right? But I just think that the whole interactions between some of these characters, who, by the way, most of them were on the 1%, right? The 1% spectrum, right? They're that 1% that's living the high life. Which is another comment about society and how people treat other people, especially when they're not on the same spectrum, tax bracket wise, right? Those were just excellent interactions, right? So I really liked that part of the movie. I also liked certain aspects of Arthur Fleck as a character and how you didn't really know what was real and what wasn't. How was his mind thinking? It was like we weren't really seeing him, but we were seeing through his eyes, and especially with Zazie Beetz' character. And that was one of my also favorite moments of this film. I also loved the dance scene that he did after the Wayne employee killings. I thought that was very interesting. It was an interesting choice because I think that it's a pause button per se, on what Joker had done, and I think it could be a coping mechanism, right, for him, and I think that was really well done. I also love, by the way, how Joker's laughter was a neurological disease. I thought that was excellent because Joker, that's his signature thing, is his laugh. Many people have tried to do it who have played him, made up their own versions of it. But I think it's interesting that here it's a neurological disease because we've never seen that before. Heath Ledger's laugh, which is kind of like his laugh, right? Because he's just crazy. And Jared Leto, he's a gangster, right? He's got the whole Joker thing as a persona in a way, and so that's why he did his laugh. So I think it's cool that this is actually a medical reason why his laugh is a thing, because it's very organic that way. I think it's not really, again, a persona or just because he's crazy, right? It's a neurological disease that he uses later on, right? Or maybe he doesn't use it intentionally. Maybe that's just there organically. So I thought that was a really good choice too. Speaking of some of the other characters in this movie, we're going to go character by character in the orders of my favorite appearances to my least favorite. So my favorite is Bruce freaking Wayne. I'm sorry, but I just think that the foreshadowing of the Batcave, Batman as a person, right, and seeing this perspective of Gotham, right, the 1%. I think that's really cool. I think that's interesting. I think a sequel could totally dive into that. I don't want the sequel to be too much Batman, though, because this is Joker's story. It's not really fair to have Batman steal the show. I don't know how they're going to do it. We're going to make a whole video about this, about Batman and the DCEU splitting up into 3 different directions, with Matt Reeves as Batman, with this Batman possibly being a thing, or Joker 2 in general. And then, of course, the DCEU with Wonder Woman, Aquaman, Harley Quinn, that half of DC. So we'll talk about that in a separate video. But I loved the fact that Bruce Wayne, I think, is stuck. I think that he's stuck in this childlike stasis, right, or like moment in his life after his parents get killed by the Joker movement, by someone who was dressed up like a Joker. Maybe it was Joe Chill as a Joker, right? That's cool. But I love the fact that he just seems like he's stuck because of the foreshadowing of the Batcave. That playset in Wayne Manor, the yard, which is really close to the front gate, by the way. You'd expect it to be closer off to the side or like in the back. But I think that's very, very Batcave-like. And I think that is a sign that he's just stuck in this, again, childlike stasis, but as an adult later in life. And I'd like to explore that. There's a comic, Batman Earth 1, that explores the mental health of Batman. That was Jeff Johns, and who else did that? Oh, I can't remember, but I know Jeff Johns wrote it. But it explores Batman dealing with mental health himself, because in that comic book storyline, Martha Wayne, when she wasn't married to Thomas, was Martha Arkham, and so there's mental health issues that run through the family. And I'd love to see that explored here because it just makes so much sense. Maybe not because of the Arkham stuff. Maybe he's not an Arkham, halfway. But there is some trauma that was dealt out. And there's always been that trauma from the Wayne killings and from his parents dying. So I'd like to explore that in this world. I think that would be really cool. But I love the interaction that he has with Arthur. And that really Bruce Wayne was the only one that was nice to him in this movie. I mean, Zazie Beetz' character was like not crazy. She was nice, but she wasn't like awful to him. It was just kind of awkward. But Bruce Wayne was all in, right? He was just super nice to him. Didn't question why there was a crazy person at his gate, threw in a bunch of magic tricks and stuff like that. He was just there. He was listening. He was paying attention to Arthur. And that's important because that shows also why Batman doesn't kill the Joker. And I think that's a really good setup there. Alfred, that interaction, I talked about that a little earlier, right? That interaction, because Thomas Wayne is a crazy, awful person, and well, maybe not crazy, but he's like a really mean person, and crazy to think that he can just punch some mental health, person, or someone with mental health issues, right? He can just punch Arthur in the face, right, and get rid of the problem. That's awful, right? So Alfred, therefore, is an extension of that, and I thought that's so smart, right? That Alfred is just like Thomas, because that's the kind of person Thomas would employ, right? Because it's him. So that would be cool to see that as well. So I thought that was really good stuff from Todd Phillips, and maybe he'll get to pursue that. I don't know if he wants to, but I know that Joaquin does because he's been talking about that recently. So that's really cool. I also really liked, again, the comic book stuff. So Bruce Wayne and Alfred aside, my next favorite is Murray. I thought Robert De Niro was amazing here. He was incredible. And I think he has the most screen time out of all the supporting characters. Maybe tied with like Thomas Wayne and Penny. But I think that he does have a lot of screen. Well, I don't know. I wonder if he does have more. I think he does. But Robert De Niro was excellent, especially the last scene, the talk show. The talk show scene was amazing, particularly because it borrows so heavily from the Dark Knight Returns talk show scene with Joker that it made me smile. It wasn't ripping it off. It wasn't going too far, off from the source material and just kind of disrespecting that scene from the comics. No, it borrowed from it, paid homage to it. It didn't quite elevate it, but it transformed it into something, again, that fits this narrative, that fits this plot, that fits the movie and fits this world. And I thought that was incredible. It was well done. I love that they took certain moments like the kissing the doctor, right? That was in the show when Joker did that, when Arthur did that. That's straight from the comic. But again, it's not play by play because there was some stuff in the comic. I think it was like laughing gas or poison gas, right? From the kiss and their events that kept following that with Joker. That wasn't here. It was just borrowing from that because that's something that Joker would do, and I thought it was excellently done here. So props to that, whoever came up with those ideas. That was great. And then shooting Murray in the face, I thought that was just so, it wasn't unexpected, it wasn't unpredictable, because I thought it was going to happen. I knew it. I was like, he's going to die, right? But it was still incredible to watch, because it wasn't just, I know what's going to happen, so it's not that great, and then it happens and you're like, it wasn't as cool as I thought it would be, or, well, I'm not cool, it's not cool to murder somebody, but it didn't pay off, right, for the Joker's transformation as I thought it was going to be. No, it actually was just as good as I thought it was going to be, if not better, and I think that's really great, because it starts the Joker movement. It takes the movie into a direction where we can do a sequel, right? A legacy for this person, a legacy for Arthur as Joker. And that's interesting because we get to dive back into this world. Again, it's not great what Joker does here. It's not great that he shoots this person in the face. It's not great that this movie has some graphic killing, but it's rated R. It's a Joker film. I think people should pay attention to that because people don't, and it's kind of annoying. But again, it sets up a legacy for the character in this movie, through the narrative. And he goes to Arkham Asylum, right? And so it solidifies the character, because really Arthur doesn't become Joker until the last 30 minutes of this film. And so that was a really cool moment because it pays homage to that comic book storyline and brings in so much, brings in focus to Arthur as Joker, and I think it's a really good origin conclusion. So I liked it, and I think that it worked for the film quite a bit. So that was Murray, right? And then Zazie Beetz. She doesn't have a lot to do here because most of her stuff is in Arthur's mind, which I thought was excellent. But I did love some of the things. Like, I loved when she showed up to the door. She was like, "Were you following me today?" And he was like, "Yeah, I was following you." And she was like, "That's cool," right? She just didn't even acknowledge the fact that it was really creepy. But again, later on, we just learned it's all in his mind. And that was so cool to see. And then when she flips on the dime and it's the real life version of her character, and she's like, "You're in the wrong apartment," right? That was well done by Zazie Beetz. I'm wondering if she's going to show up in Deadpool 3 as Domino. Or maybe, well, who knows if they're going to do Deadpool 3, when they're going to do it. But I wonder if she'll ever be Domino again. If not, I'd love to see her come back in the next movie. People were thinking she was Harley Quinn, but I don't see it. I don't see her as a Harley Quinn. But maybe just as another supporting character that shows up more and more. That would be cool, right? So that was some of those moments that I liked as well. One more thing that I really loved about the movie was the idea of changing the Wayne origin. I loved Bruce Wayne's Batman origin story being created by the Joker movement. I thought that was actually really well done because, again, it just ties everything together, but it explores the idea of a sequel because then Batman would meet the man who's responsible for the movement that killed his parents, and they would go head to head. And again, the 1% idea of Batman and Alfred, right, versus the 99% Joker, and exploring the mental health trauma issues of Bruce Wayne while still exploring the mental health awareness ideas of Joker. It just all works. It's perfect. And I think that, to be honest, I kind of like it better than the original story. And well, maybe, kind of, a little bit. Because again, it's just so fascinating, specifically to this world. So that was another thing I really liked. And the idea that they could be brothers too, that's cool. And I think that Todd Phillips has created quite the story for these two characters. And I'd love to see that into the future in further installments. Maybe not like 3, well, maybe they could do a trilogy. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, it's just really cool. And I think that Todd Phillips has found himself an undeniable point of making a sequel. I mean, I don't see why he can't, or like how he couldn't, right? Because it's just so delicious here as a story and so rich in story as well that you just have to, right? So what do you guys think of Joker, right? That's the conclusion of my review. It's a very long review. But what do you guys think about it? Do you like it? Do you not like it? What was your favorite part of the film? And do you think that we should explore a sequel? I'll be making 2 videos about this. One talking about, again, the DCEU as a whole and where this takes it. And then 2, details that we should have for the next sequel. Things that we need in the next sequel. Or I guess the next movie, which is the sequel, right? So again, what do you guys think? Comment down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Don't forget to like, favorite, and subscribe. And I will see you guys later for some more videos. Bye-bye.